Hello and welcome to another Ukraine war update. This is part 2 of the last update I had to split because of an attack by people who want to silence me and limit my reach. The full 55+ minute long version of this update is viewable on my private Telegram channel or on my Ko-fi page. The link is in the description. If you appreciate the tremendous effort I put into this video, please show so with a like and comment. It really helps me out a lot. Thank you. It seems that, for now, the plan is to seize as much territory as possible from Ukraine in the Donetsk and Luhansk regions, while simultaneously nullifying the Ukrainian summer offensive gains in the Zaporizhia region. All this is done with the upcoming US elections in mind, speculating on the victory of Donald Trump, who will then most likely push Ukraine into a dictated peace deal with Russia.
Before I even arrive at the Oval Office, I will have the disastrous war between Russia and Ukraine settled. And it will take me no longer than one day.
Putin's gamble includes the expectation that Trump will advise Ukraine to surrender all lost territories for peace. This, however, ignores Europe's potential willingness to independently uphold Ukraine's defensive capabilities, even without future support from the United States. But enough about geopolitics for now. South of Marinka, Russian forces have been attempting to capture Novomykhailivka for several months now, and have recently made progress. Their efforts have primarily originated from the main road leading into the town from the south, the fields west of the town behind a series of tree lines, and the field northeast of the town. These axes of approach extend over terrain that is 90% wide open, offering no cover or concealment. This makes Russian columns easy targets for various weapon systems, including ATGMs and FPV drones. Russia primarily attacks with small squads to platoon-sized elements, similar to tactics used in other parts of the front. A significant amount of equipment is lost during these pushes. This pattern continued for several months, during which unit after unit was sent towards the town, only to be destroyed. The attacks are primarily led by Russia's 155th Naval Infantry Brigade, which, according to geolocated footage, has definitely lost numerous vehicles during the assaults before even reaching the town. As you can see here, the main road leading up to the town is littered with the wrecks of armored vehicles, and everything moving on it is basically an easy target for cluster munitions and other types of weapons. Same like with the surrounding fields. However, here the lack of artillery munition also becomes a problem for Ukraine. The town is defended by the Ukrainian 79th Air Assault Brigade and 116th Territorial Defense Brigade and 2 drone groups in the rear. This video from earlier this year shows one of the many assaults from the perspective of one fighter of the 155th Naval Brigade who documented parts of it with his helmet camera. According to Ukrainian sources, Russian assault operations take place almost every day. Novomykhailivka is located about 12 kilometers south of the town of Marinka that is currently under Russian control. It also appears that Russia has been deploying reserve forces in this area. The Russians here are under fire by artillery including cluster munitions and advance through a devastated tree line without any armor support as it seems. Unclear if their goal was to reach the town on foot or if they wanted to occupy this empty trench system you see here as a base for future assaults. After numerous attempts, the Russians managed to enter the city from the east and have captured about 30% of it by now. I must openly acknowledge that this town is at risk of falling in the near future. Helmet cam footage claims to show Russian troops inside the town as they clear a ruin that appears empty. Nonetheless, they proceed to clear it with fire. While this may partly be for the camera, it's also standard procedure, similar to how empty trenches are handled. Ultimately, there's always a risk that someone could be hiding in a corner, even if a room, building, or trench seems empty. These scenes were released by the Russian Ministry of Defense, and a noticeable difference in the quality of the footage compared to the previous one is evident. The raw video had sound effects of artillery, explosions, and gunfire added to make it seem like there was more action happening around these men than there actually was. If you really watched till now, I wanted to say thank you. Your support really means a lot to me. I hope this video earned a like. This really helps me with the algorithm so that this video reaches more people. I really put time and effort into this. Also feel free to leave a comment and to share this video. I know I was inactive for some time now, but I plan to upload more regularly from now on. Also interesting how these soldiers have high-end cameras but no advanced sights on their rifles. But this only is a side note, and now let's take a look even further south to the Zaporizhia front. In Robotyne, Russia launched a number of assaults to recapture the town from Ukraine. First-person helmet cam video, recorded by the Special Forces of the Ukrainian National Guard, shows what these types of assaults on Robotyne look like for Ukrainian soldiers on the ground. They observe Russian armored vehicles in their vicinity and proceed to target them with disposable rocket launchers, including an AT-4. This conflict has demonstrated that, particularly in small settlements, villages, and towns, hard cover is relative, and in most cases, only basements provide at least a minimum level of protection. Additionally, these scenes reveal the flat, vast, and devastated terrain in which they are fighting. The effective firing range of the AT-4, as well as most other small disposable rocket launchers, does not exceed 300 meters, so what they attempted here was quite challenging to pull off, to be honest. Additionally, these systems are more designed for use against stationary or lightly armored vehicles. It appears that the Russian vehicles were significantly beyond that range and constantly moving. For this situation, a couple of N-laws would have been the perfect solution. However, these men have to fight with what they have, so they tried their best. For javelins, the vehicles were a little bit too close. While the Russian vehicles moved through their field of fire without noticing the men, they were still at risk of being spotted by a Russian observer drone every second they remained out in the open. Therefore, this situation was more perilous than it appeared at first glance. Being spotted would most likely have meant being targeted by incoming artillery or FPV drones. It seems that despite all their efforts, the Russian armored vehicles managed to drop off infantry inside the town. Consequently, the Ukrainians brought a previously hidden Mk19 automatic grenade launcher into position to target the approximate location of the dismounted infantry. Given the high likelihood that infantry squads, having just disembarked from vehicles, are temporarily in close proximity to each other, such a weapon, effective against area targets, can be quite formidable. However, as you can see, it seems that things did not go as planned, and the men proceeded to sporadically target the direction with small arms fire before retreating back into their shelter. As mentioned, you can support the guys with a small donation for new drones and equipment. The link is in the description. Also, the air war over Ukraine continues, and here we see a Ukrainian detachment shooting down what has been reported as a Russian Kh-101 cruise missile over Kiev. A Browning M2 machine gun was used to shoot down the missile. This footage here shows the downing of a Russian Shahed 136 over Odessa by a Ukrainian Navy SAM system. This clip captures the downing of a Ukrainian drone by Russian troops somewhere on the front line. And this video here depicts a surgical drone dropped grenade strike on a Russian manned pad system. As you can see, the war of attrition rages on also in or perhaps especially in the air. Once an asset gets spotted, it can effectively be engaged with precise accuracy, and this works even more well with stationary targets. Here a Russian BMP-3 is used for indirect fire. Basically, there is nothing special about this video since it is well known that Russia uses their tanks and armored vehicles for this quite often. However, what is special is what the other side does, as you will soon see. This type of fire is basically also done if it is too dangerous to deploy the vehicles for direct fire missions, so to not leave them unused. The Ukrainians are also known to do this with old tanks, but now even use their advanced CV-90 infantry fighting vehicle for this, as you can see here. Pretty interesting to see such a modern piece of IFV in such a role. Here a Ukrainian drone hits a Russian recon drone several times in mid-air, causing the Russian drone to crash. With more and more drones being used over the sky of Ukraine, scenes like this are not as rare anymore, and this year alone has seen a huge amount of videos showing similar events, but more to this in the next update. The whole scene even got filmed by another Ukrainian drone observing everything. This helmet cam footage shows Ukrainian soldiers of the 81st Airmobile Brigade clearing Russian positions with two M72 mines as explosive charges nearby Novomykhailivka in the Luhansk region. The soldier throwing the mines as explosives uses a lighter to ignite the fuse and then throws the mines into holes into the Russian positions, who then get blown up. Of course, he also uses grenades and moves with fire to suppress the Russians inside, but the mine charges seem quite effective in the result, even if it looks a bit strange seeing him using a lighter to ignite the fuse. I believe this is not the first time we see mines used like this, if I remember correctly, and think there was a similar video last year from the Southern Front. I could be wrong here, but don't know. If you know more or remember for sure, let me know in the comments. Speaking about mines, both sides came up with this innovative idea to use unmanned ground vehicles to place mines, and they can place quite a lot of them pretty fast, as these videos here show. They can definitely carry more than a human and place them also faster. The mine is basically one of the oldest, if not the oldest, autonomous weapon system on its own. Fascinating to see this mix of old and new technology, but I have to say that I am no friend of mines, even if I have to admit that they are one of the most effective anti-armor weapons currently used in this war. In conclusion of this update, and the first 3 months of the year, it must be acknowledged that the situation remains difficult for Ukraine. Russia's offensive has yielded some gains, and while not substantial, they are still more significant than Ukraine's counteroffensive gains last summer. This could potentially influence politicians in the West who are opposed to continuing support for Ukraine. The shortage of artillery, ammunition and air defense systems, as frequently mentioned in this update, remains a major concern. Additionally, the potential of Trump's victory in the 2024 presidential elections casts an uncertain shadow over Ukraine. Ukraine. However, the war is far from lost for Ukraine, but its outcome is heavily dependent on Western aid. This year, for sure, will be a crucial one in this war, not only for Ukraine but also for Europe. The question is, will they uphold Ukraine's war efforts even if the United States will not under a potential presidency of Trump? And how will Trump react if his plan to end the war in 24 hours does not work out the way he imagined it, or Putin stabs him in the back after a deal? This is a total different perspective we all have not considered. As daunting as the situation seems, even in the face of this new potential escalation, a deal still appears to be a realistic future option. The issue is that Russia currently has a slight upper hand, and things are going reasonably well for Putin. Why shouldn't he seize as much territory as he can? Here, France's potential intervention comes into play, possibly involving the deployment of French troops in Odessa and Kharkiv. This would also likely then lead to the deployment of additional European troops from other countries. While a risky move, this would create a red line and counterbalance to Russia's current advantage. It would also ensure that any deal between Putin and Trump would only extend to those areas, potentially leading to a loss of the territories currently occupied by Russia, including Crimea, but allowing Ukraine's continued existence for the time being. This would be the best scenario for Ukraine if the West decides not only to discontinue but also not to intensify their arms shipments to Ukraine. Ukraine would not like this, however. In the end, this would let Ukraine look like the loser, even if they in reality would have won the war, or at least have let it end it in a stalemate if we consider Russia's starting goals of this war. And it would let the Russians look like the winners, because there would be more Ukrainian territory under their control than there was 2014, while Ukraine could not realize their goals of liberating all their territory. This, however, is only how it would look like, and in reality both sides would not be happy with this sort of outcome, what in the end would make this an okay deal. For any better outcome or deal, Ukraine currently needs more of everything, and this fast and steady, what however requires the West switching to a serious wartime economy. I am only talking about possibilities here, however. This is an opinion piece and nothing I said has to be the case.